Good day all, welcome back to South Africa, and this is Southafricanprepper / homesteader. Over the last couple of months, Tucker Carlson, and you all should know him, did a couple of interviews with a couple of characters that the world doesn't seem to like. And in one of his interviews, he mentioned that the three most censored events in human history took place the last 4 years. The first event being the 2019 Trump and Biden elections, where Trump was voted out by Biden. And then the second most censored event in the world, and we're going to test this theory now, was the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic. Right, so what should happen with this little test is at the bottom of this video, a COVID-19 thingamajig will pop up, and hopefully it'll prove to us that you are actually being watched on social media. And then the second most censored event in world history or in human history is the Russian-Ukrainian war. So they call this the fog of war. So you don't really know what's going on. You're getting a one-sided affair. If you don't dig around and look at other channels than the big media companies, you will actually not find the truth. So it's quite ironic because in the early 1990s, everybody was screaming at the Soviet Union, yeah, communism is so bad. Now, the theory and the ideology about communism is a bad thing. It actually, all around the world throughout history, the idea of communism actually never worked because you've got a government that eventually owns everything, even the businesses, and the people literally work like slaves. So in the 1990s, communism fell in Russia, and everybody, the West, screamed, yeah, everybody was happy and excited because now a new era of democracy within Russia started. Now it's quite ironic because I can think of one country, and this is just one example. Canada, for example. You remember Canada, where Trudeau actually shut down people's bank accounts so they couldn't protest against the government. You remember the Freedom Convoy, all of the truckers, and how the Canadian government fought these peaceful protesters protesting against the government. Now, is this democracy or is this communism? So if you are censoring people and you are making sure that they cannot stand up against the government, they cannot voice their concerns against the government, and you shut them down like they did in the Freedom Convoy, well, common sense will tell you that this is not democracy, but it is definitely communism. But you see the West and all of these liberal retards want you to think, and they dress it as democracy. If you look at Ukraine, for an example, the West have been telling us that we are fighting against the Russians and we are fighting for democracy. But then you see what Zelensky does. Recently, over the last 2 years when the war started, he actually got rid of certain of his competitors within the Ukrainian government. The news about the war is censored in Ukraine. What's really happening is censored. So is this a democracy? Did they really ask the Ukrainian people, where's the referendum? Did they ask the Ukrainian people, would you like to continue this war? Or would you like to start talking to Russia about peace? Now, we're not going to get into the nitty-gritties of why Russia is doing what Russia is doing. I personally believe Russia is fighting the bully of the world, which is the West, and is actually giving them a bloody nose at this stage. But the question we are asking ourselves here, is it democracy or is it communism? You remember 2020 COVID-19? And again, that little thing at the bottom is going to pop up telling you why COVID does exist and why what you need to do and the precautions for it and all of that nonsense. Protest in Australia, for an example. Yes, that police force was so brutal. People walking their dogs and being arrested. In South Africa, the police arrested people for walking on the beach or going for a swim in the sea during COVID. Now, is that democracy or is that communism? I know of a lot of people in South Africa where the lockdowns were lifted and the company said to them, you have to get the injection, otherwise you cannot work. And obviously there's been a lot of complications, health complications for these people. But now the question again that we're asking ourselves, is it a democracy or is it communism? Because some of these people had zero choice. Get the injection, get 2 of them, and then you can go back to work. So is that a democracy? Is that the freedom to choose for yourself? So in one of my previous videos, I tried to explain to everybody how the system works, that there's 3 legs, and how the system were actually built to control you. And if you live in South Africa, for example, and let's say you are a normal, hard-working person, you maybe work for salary, the system is geared to screw you. And I would like to give you a normal example. Let's take a normal person working for a normal salary. At the end of the month, he gets his paycheck paid into his bank account. But even before he gets paid, they deduct the tax. And that tax then gets paid over to the South African Revenue Service, or SARS, or the tax man. Right? So then you take your money and you pay all your bills. You go grocery shopping, you maybe pay your house, maybe pay your car, maybe pay your kids' school fees, the normal bills that everybody has to pay. Okay? And then eventually, maybe you're lucky and you end up with a little bit of money to put away or save. So let's say you've saved for a couple of years, and you decide you're going to take your savings and you're going to buy something that's going to produce an income. Okay, this is just an example. Let's say you buy yourself maybe a little flat that you then rent out to make a bit of extra income. Okay, so from this income that you're making, you are being taxed again. It's absolutely crazy. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but in South Africa, the way we are being taxed. So you are being taxed on your income, and then when you go buy something, you are taxed again. Something like fuel comes to mind now. Our fuel levy in South Africa is absolutely crazy. The amount of money they take for every liter of diesel or petrol that we put into our vehicles, we are getting taxed heavily. You're getting taxed on your fuel via VAT and the levy, the fuel levy that they are deducting from every liter that you put into your vehicle. So the question that we need to ask ourselves, is it democracy or is it democracy dressed up as communism? It's absolutely madness what has happened to us in the last 4 years. And I can understand why people are anxious. I can understand why mental health is just down the shithole, because people are battling. In South Africa, for an example, we are going into an election. The election has been made earlier or pushed forward so these buggers can actually stay in power. And you know what? The poorest of the poor people will again vote for them because they are so shit scared that they're gonna lose their SASSA grant or the little bit of money that they get from the government every single month. They are shit scared of it. It's quite interesting because the ANC government is known for being communism, and they've implemented a program 20, 30 years ago in South Africa where the poorest of the poor are actually making children, because every child that gets born, they can get a little bit of money every single month. Okay, it's not enough really to raise a child, but that's what they do. They breed like rabbits. 4 or 5 kids, and then every single month they get a little bit of money. Living in a tin shack somewhere on the outskirts of a city or town somewhere. It's absolutely madness. How did we get here? So election year coming up for a lot of countries, and one has to think for who you actually want to vote for. And sometimes even the parties that we think are for us, for some reason they are just not for us. A lot of the conservative parties around the world are also bought and paid for, like the rest, or the liberal side, or the left side. I know here in America that if you are against the Democrats and you don't like liberal ideas, you have got something, I think they call it rural white rage. Absolutely madness. And then the last thing, and I'm sitting with a magazine here, it's called the Farmers Weekly. It says here that the ANC government in South Africa, what they're doing with imports, and especially this article goes about chicken imports and how they're crushing our chicken industry and how they are actually almost allowing the chicken imports from other countries to come in. And they say here in 2023 we imported 400,000 tons of chicken meat. And this is killing our chicken industry, because our chicken industry is some of the best in the world. But they're battling because the government, the ANC government, is allowing these imports. So instead of shutting the imports down and allowing our chicken industry to produce and supply for our own people, they are taking money under the table, allowing other countries just to dump this shit in our country. And that goes for everything in South Africa. South Africa exports iron ore. In the olden days, in the apartheid days, we used to dig out the iron ore, we used to melt it down, and we used to make our own steel. Now we send it to China, they melt it down, they produce the steel, and then they send the steel back to South Africa. It's absolutely madness. South Africa used to be, and this is a fact that a lot of people don't even know, from 1913 up until 2008, we imported the most gold year after year. What happened? A lot of things happened. One thing that did happen, it's called communism. This is South African Prepper. Thumbs up, please like, share and subscribe. And thank you for all of the positive and good comments.